Let's do it. Welcome everyone to the St. Louis County Board meeting for July 13th already, 2021. Time does fly. Good to see all the smiling faces. We like to have people come and visit us. It's always nice to see constituents. So what we do in our meetings is we have a moment of silence for victims of violence, foreign and domestic, and then we move into the Pledge of Allegiance. So what we'll do is ask everyone to have that moment of silence and then directly go into the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, everyone. I already gave my movie trivia for the day. Auditor Nielsen had to Google it, so. On the agenda this morning, we have some speakers, but let's do this and get a roll call first.
Commissioner Jewell, Commissioner Boyle,
Here.
Commissioner Graham,
Here.
Commissioner McDonald,
Here.
Commissioner Musa,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson,
Here.
and Chair Commissioner Ugovich.
Here. Thank you. At this time, citizens will be allowed to address the board on items not on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes, so we've got a list. Oh, I'm so sorry. We're in Commissioner McDonald's district, and he would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome to the 4th District, Boise, Forte, and Vermillion Lake Township intersect here. And we had a very good discussion last night with the tribal chair and members of the tribal council. And with that, before I introduce the tribal chair, I would like to thank Jalen Strong, who coordinates the Heritage Center, for the wonderful tour and verbiage last night. I think I was amazed at the knowledge that he has, and as tribal chair Kathy said earlier too, he's young. And that's a way that we can continue with that culture. And I've known him since he's been a little kid, and he sure has grown up. And just getting the history from his family lineage yesterday was very enlightening for me as well. So with that, I'll introduce Kathy Chavers, the tribal chair from Boise Forte, for a few remarks. Welcome, Kathy.
Indigenous cause Ogama Kwe Minugajip. I said good morning. My name is Kathy Chavers. I'm tribal chair of the Boise Forte Band of Chippewa. I'm also the first female president of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. I want to say I'm very honored to have the St. Louis County Commissioner Board meeting here today and have all the guests here with us. I put out some asema this morning, or tobacco, to wish you a good meeting in a good way and safe travels home. And it's very honorable for us to have this meeting here today, because we want to build bridges and collaborations and partnerships with our county commissioners and the people in the area. So this is a way that I want to thank Paul McDonald for arranging this. We talked about it quite a while ago, and this has been in the works for a while. So I really want to say Chimigwich, which is thank you on behalf of the Boise Forte Band, and I wish you all a good meeting, and thank you so much for being at our facility. Thank you. Have a good meeting.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I did ask, I told her if she had any asks, that this was the time for the asks, but she was very, very nice about that. Again, thank you, Tribal Chair. That's all I have. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just a little something on last night. The Heritage Center is amazing. If you haven't seen it, get there. It is worth it. We got in, we got in a special tour, and it was educational. It was so interesting to see all the different aspects and things that have gone on through the years. It was just enlightening, and I love all the veterans pictures. That was my favorite, and it definitely the coolest photo, I think we all agreed, was grandfather's sunglasses and with the veterans. That was great. So thank you so much. We learned a lot. We appreciate it, and we look forward to working together any way we can in the future. Thanks. Okay, speakers. We ready? All right. First one is Sue
Throwback.
Roback. Okay, come on down. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, members. I want to thank you for letting me talk at this meeting. I'm from Greenwood Township, and we are looking at getting broadband for our community. We've gotten, we're looking at $6.4 million. I think because we have so much rock around there that it deters a lot of fiber. But we've got projects going on, and it includes unorganized township 63 and 17 and 6217, which are county representative. And we've got one thing that's a good thing for the county. The fiber to the home will increase values of homes, and that therefore, which will increase taxes for the county. So we've got several supporters, the St. Louis County District 2142, Boise Forte, IRRB, RAMS, and both U.S. senators. We've gotten notice of the senators Tina Smith and Amy Klobuchar, who are working on getting us close to, or a little bit over $5 million when our project is 6.4. So that would really be a help, but we do have a budget that is not fulfilled yet. So we could really use about $300,000 of the Rescue Act money that the county is going to be getting. I hope you will be putting a lot of that money into broadband to get everyone in the area to be able to do a lot of, we have people that come up and want to work from home, and they're not able to with what we have right now. So that decreases any younger people that want to move up. It decreases their ability to work from home, and so that's a big problem. So let's see. We can get better advertising and production, and the county, let's see. Also, the telehealth is with our aging residents in our township. We're hoping to get more younger people to come in, and this is one of the big things. So I am asking the commission to please put a lot of money into broadband for all the townships, cities, and whomever else is in the county to get our broadband up to date. Thank you.
Next up, we have Rich Floyd. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Rich Floyd, and I'm the chairman of the Eagles Nest Township Board of Supervisors. I'm here in that capacity to represent the board and other citizens in the township. I want to talk about a prospective ATV route running through our township, which is dubbed a corridor access route. The reason it's called a corridor access route is because it departs from our regular trail through the woods and goes down roads and then joins up with a trail further down the line. This particular corridor access route travels down Bearhead State Park Road, Walsh Road, and part of Swanson Shores Road. Walsh Road is a very curvy and hilly, well, it's not so hilly, it's somewhat hilly, but very curvy road with tight corners. In some places, less than 100 feet visibility. A lot of people walk that road, particularly in the summertime. Just as I was coming here today, there was a little kid on the side of the road with two, looked like older women, 3-year-old probably with his bike, and they were out on the pavement somewhat. I came around the corner and there they were. Our board, the first we heard about any trails in our township was, I think, in 2016. And the board voiced its disapproval at that time. We didn't hear anything else until less than 2 months ago when we had our regular monthly meeting toward the end of May. Because we were holding meetings remotely at that time, we didn't have the advantage of seeing any maps or visuals of what was being told to us about the trails. Turns out none of us really fully understood what the report was about. One of our supervisors took it upon himself to find out more for our next meeting, and at that point we were getting quite concerned. A few days later we held a special meeting to discuss that matter specifically. Most of our meetings have possibly 1 or 2 to 5 or 6 people in the audience. This meeting had 30 people attending, or thereabouts. I took an informal poll during the meeting, and I saw one hand go up who was for this ATV route passing through our township. The rest were opposed. I heard later on that 2 people were for it. Whatever the case, most of the people in attendance there were opposed to it. The result of that meeting was that we passed a motion, and I won't go into the entire motion here, but the part that's pertinent to you is that the board is opposed to the creation of such a route through our township, and we ask that the county not approve that. I understand it's the executive committee for ATV permits that makes a recommendation to the whole board. I wanted to meet with one of you earlier, about 2 weeks ago, but that was postponed. Hence, I'm here today to speak to the whole board rather than just the committee. That's, unless you have some questions for me, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have John Clements.
I'm Jane.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Thank
Jane.
you.
My bad. I need my cheaters.
You know, I don't have my glasses either. So I'm just going to speak from my heart. I'm here to support Rich. I want you to know that those of us who live in Eagles Nest Township feel as though we have the most wonderful place in the world to live. We, I think, would be a very great example for any group of county commissioners to hold up as a way of living together and communally. So I just want to say that I have the issue of safety. I have the issue of personal safety, of walking on the roads, biking on the roads. I have the issue of safety for those who are driving on our roads. They are curvy and windy and hilly. So I also want to bring Kathy Cheever's point of building coalition, getting to know each other, not dividing. We don't have a problem. Let's not create a problem. And as John Denver saying to me this morning, as I was driving in, let it be. Just let it be. Simple words of wisdom. Let it be.
Okay, next we have Mark Cowell?
It's Kayla.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, thank you very much. I live on Swanson Shores Road, which is a township road as an extension of Walsh Road, 989, 128, coming off of Bearhead Lake Road. And I would point out to you that these roads are a dead end, and they end in our residential community with a cul-de-sac, and that road was a private road when I bought my property in 1992, and I'm a permanent resident there. And I'm speaking for myself, my partner Barb, who lives with me, and many by consensus of my neighbors who I've spoken to about this. When that road was private, we as homeowners improved it, and we brought it to a condition where it became a township road. We also purchased an outlot that was a remainder of the original plat of Swanson Shores. We made that available to the state of Minnesota, and they added that property to Bearhead Lake State Park. And we did that as a win-win situation so that we would maintain the quality of life that we have out there. We would have some privacy, and that the park would gain by the addition of this space. That would give you an indication of how the people on this road feel about our privacy and our quality of life. And because this corridor, this promoted corridor, which doesn't actually exist, but on a map, would bring a number of people on this road to a trail which is closed to motorized vehicles, posted by the DNR and confirmed by their staff. It would bring a burden to the quality of life of the people who live along this road. And I would suggest to you that the majority of people there are not ATV club members, and the few that do own ATVs are probably using them in a minimal fashion to move from neighbor to neighbor's home or to take care of their property. So I know that the Ordinance 64 of the county that created this condition for ATVs to travel on right-of-ways has a section in it, subsection 3D, which allows this committee to close any county road for use by all-terrain vehicles. And I would suggest to you that the majority of people in this particular vicinity would be in favor of you doing just such a thing. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
John Flatten? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm John Flayton. I live at 1375 Walsh Road and have since 1997. I live at the midpoint downhill slope of one of the hills and curves on Walsh Road that at one time the old timers referred to as Scuffy's Curve. I gather because tires scraped and scuffed when going around at normal speed there. It's to drive that curve safely, you have to drop down to about 20 miles an hour. The posted is 30 on Walsh Road. If you're coming from Ely going toward Tower on this bypass that exists for the RV Route 4, you're going from a 45 mile an hour speed limit on Bearhead State Park Road to a 30 mile an hour speed limit, and then on Swanson Shores to a 15. So this should all be decelerating. This Route 4 is in use already because it's on the map. And I spend a lot of time out along the road where my wife has some gardens. And when I hear a truck or something that sounds like a truck coming, I have to look up and be certain that they're securely on the road. We've had 2 occasions where vehicles have gone off the road. To my knowledge, they were not RVs, but have gone off the road, come across our property and run into one of our trees. It's actually happened in both directions, but in the direction going toward the Bearhead Star Road, that was someone who was inebriated, and it happened in the middle of the night, so that perhaps doesn't count. But I've seen quite a few RVs in the last couple of weeks since I think this map has gotten some publication that are being operated by people I don't recognize as neighbors of mine. I've got no problems with RVs, but I don't think they belong in a residential neighborhood. We also saw these children this morning on the road. Over the holiday weekend, there were kids, grandkids mostly, I think. There were 8 or 9 of them in one area, out on the road, sitting on the road, playing with their dog and so forth. Our residential neighborhood is just incompatible with a big influx of RVs, and the ones that I've witnessed so far have been going fast enough that I'd say they're probably over our speed limits. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Watson? Nick? Oh.
Can I give a handout?
Pardon?
Can I give a handout?
Two.
All right, I'm Nick Wagnum, 235 East Boundary Street in Ely. I'm president of the Prospector ATV Club. I gave a handout to the board here today so they can get a visual of what's being talked about this morning here before the board. A little background, we've been working on ATV trails on the Prospector, which includes the communities of Ely, Babbitt, Tower, and Embarrass for 8 years now. We worked with the DNR when they went through their master plan revision process for the Taconite Trail, and the master plan was changed to allow ATV traffic. The DNR just spent about $1 million improving the Taconite Trail between Ely and Purvis Lake. It's not technically open yet. It should be here shortly. And the concerns that the township residents raise are good ones. I'm certainly not opposed to safety. I'm certainly not opposed to making sure that we have a way for people to get through an area without causing problems. What we're talking about today is how to get people through that area now and using county roads and township roads to do so. So the map I showed you has different colors on it. The bright green lines are your roads, right? Those are county roads in the township itself. The purple line is the Taconite Trail. To the upper northeast section, there's a blue line that shows the Purvis Forest Road. That is a county forest road. And then you can see the Walsh Road going in between the lakes there. And it sure is windy and has some issues with that. I inserted a blue line on the end of Walsh Road as it goes to Swanson Shores to show you where that connection would be made if it was to go through there, or as it is now, I should say. We'd like to propose another option, and that is to open the Taconite Trail on the south side of Eagle's Nest there and allow ATVs to go through there and not use county roads to get through this section. This is a decision the DNR can make. I don't believe they're here today. I don't see anybody, or didn't see anybody come in from the DNR to address that. But it's something that we have certainly addressed with Representative Eklund, with Senator Bach, and with DNR staff. So they're aware of our request. That's what we would like to see, is open up that section where that orange line goes and allow us to go through there. We believe there's a way to do that. There may be a reroute along the way there to stay away from a wet area. That's fine. Those are things that can be done easily. My request to you, the St. Louis County Board, would be that you consider passing a resolution asking that the DNR open that section of the Taconite to ATVs. that would alleviate a lot of the problems for all you folks. Well, let me just finish by saying, this is an issue that we're certainly well aware of. I'm here representing the Prospector Club here today. We have over 200 members now and growing fast. We understand that as we bring people to this area to recreate, that they stay in our hotels, they eat in our restaurants, they buy gas, they buy food. They're an economic impact as well. But there's also us who live here who would like to be able to ride these trails as they open. So if we can find a way to do so safely, I think we can all live and work together, right? Isn't that what we're looking for? So thank you for your time. Please consider a resolution to that effect at a future meeting, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, so thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that came in a little bit after that would like to address the board? Yeah, if there's a sheet there. Yeah, could you sign that sheet that's up there so we...
My name is Peggy Naylor. I live at 1251 Walsh Road. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Peggy. I'm at 1251 Walsh Road, and I'm here to support Rich Floyd and the others who spoke in opposition to having ATVs on our little residential road. I also don't want to see our outrage used as leverage to open the state park to ATVs. I think that's inappropriate. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you. My name is Tim Decker. I'm at 1220 Walsh Road. I'm also the co-president of the Eagles Nest Township Lake Owners Association. So I speak for our board. I speak for a number of our residents, our association members. I have received feedback from a number of them, all of which has been expressing their opposition to the trail. So obviously I support all the points on both sides that have been brought up today. I do want to just add a little bit of data. It's not an official count that has been done, but we did do a quick survey, and we looked at the number of homes that have to use these proposed roads for the trail. Walsh, Swanson Shores, and Bearhead State Park Road have to use those roads to gain access to and exit from their residence. So there, we came up with a number of at least 120 homeowners that have to use these roads to get to their home and to leave their home. So that's in addition to all the other traffic that you've heard about this morning, the people walking, the dog walkers, the runners, the bike riders, on all this activity. In the road, as you've heard many times, is very windy. There are many blind corners, there are blind hills, and there are blind accesses to driveways. So I would encourage you to consider all of that. I'm not sure why. I know one of the options I heard was the Taconite Trail. Is the Beaver Creek or the Beaver River, the bridge over the Beaver River, still an option? I don't know if that's being considered, but it would seem to make sense to use that, or as was proposed earlier, the Taconite, instead of, going down what amounts to be about 4 miles of asphalt, of paved road on an ATV versus a few extra miles of wooded or field trail versus driving through our neighborhoods. There is heavy, heavy opposition to this. So I present that to you as the co-president of the board and as a resident as well. Thank you.
Wait, that gentleman behind you had his hand up first. We got to get some order put back in here, so if you wait, if you want to speak, I will bring you up, but maybe hold off on the applause so whoever wants to speak is aware that they would be next. Fair?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Rick Storr. I'm a resident of Greenwood Township, and I certainly support your efforts. Any help you could give us with our broadband situation. I'm not here in that capacity. I'm here as the commander of the 8th District of the VFW. That involves St. Louis County, Lake County, Cooch County, and Itasca County. And I'm here to commend you on your foresight in organizing your Veterans Court. This is quite the tool. Recently we just went through a 3-year battle to establish language in the state of Minnesota to form county veteran service courts all over the state. 3 years. But your Veterans Court, thanks to Judge Harris, is a shining example of how well this works. And for those of you that don't know, this Veterans Court is simply a situation where if they find out they've got a veteran that's in trouble and distress, they allow him to enter into a program instead of jailing him. They allow him to go into a program, him or her, a mentored program, and that gives them the tools to put their lives back in order. And it's very successful. We were fortunate enough to be at one of your graduations. Very impressive. And thank you. Thank you for veterans. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Back to Eagle's Nest, and just a couple brief comments that I think have not been touched on. First, I wanted to say how heartened I feel at what I've heard from both sides of this issue. And Nick, I've known you for a long time, a voice of reason over there, a real good solution to this problem. One of the things that I think that has not been mentioned, I don't know about your map, it must show Eagle's Nest 1, 2, and 3, its location and proximity to Walsh Road. It's very close. As was mentioned, it's the access to the vast majority of homes on the lakes is by way of Walsh Road. The distance from the road to their cabins is not very great. And we all know, living up in this country, how sound carries over water. So I don't care where you are on the lake, you're going to hear every ATV that passes by. And for myself, the noise pollution simply from these machines, which are great fun to ride, but not that great fun to listen to if you're not participating in the pleasure of riding around through the forest. This is not the place to put this trail. Also, I think that if this were to happen, and a number of people came in for a rally or whatever, it instantly drops the value of these lakeshore properties, which are quite valuable. The tax is quite high on them, and people have invested their lives in living there for the beauty, the quiet, the solitude, the call of the loon. Thank you.
I tell you what, I'm not sure who's coming. I thought we had a list. Please hold off the applause or we'll just shut this down. I want to be able to see who wants to come up and speak, and it's very difficult. So if we could just hold that down, that would be perfect.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Frank Zobitz, and I'm the director of a 7 to 12 school in Tower. I'm also a Vermillion Lake supervisor, Township supervisor, and I'm also a business owner here in the Tower area, and I run an internet business. And I just want to say that you know, any support that you can give for the broadband initiative would be appreciated. The struggle is real. I've seen it from my student side, trying to do the distance learning and the resources that some of them have and some of them don't have. And on the same token, on my business side, trying to run an internet company off of 15 meg service is really difficult. And it's just, you can help be that impetus to start this wave up here to get more broadband, more connectivity to all the homes and places up here. So, thank you.
So did you want to come back?
Yes.
I've never seen this. Is this on a different issue?
No. I just wanted to mention that I wanted you to make sure that Greenwood Township does have $97,000 in a community fund to use for broadband. And so we do have skin in the game. We would like to have a lot of grant money, and just please put a lot of that money in broadband.
Okay, thank you. That will do it for our speakers today. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Okay. For items listed on the board agenda or committee of the whole agenda, citizens will be allowed to address the board at the time a motion is on the floor. Move on to consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by McDonald.
I'll second.
Second by Grimm. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Move on to the regular agenda under central management intergovernmental.
Move to suspend the rules.
Move to suspend the rules by Grimm. Support by McDonald. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We want to give it a second, or people, some are leaving. Okay. All right, we have a vote on confirmation of Purdue Pharma's proposed plan of reorganization. It's letter 21-304.
I'll move it.
Moved by Boyle.
Support.
Support by Musal.
Commissioners, as the board is aware, the county's participated in a lawsuit against certain opioid companies related to certain business practices related to the opioid challenges that we've had throughout the country. Recently, a plan was proposed by Purdue Pharmacies as part of its bankruptcy reorganization, and we have Attorney Rubin here that'll walk through the plan that has been presented for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Deputy Administrator Fritziger, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm going to give credit where credit is due before I give you a quick little overview of this and why we're coming to you today. Our lead counsel for St. Louis County is Nick Campanario. He couldn't be here, but he prepared this information for me, and he is the person who is our lead counsel, our litigator. And just so you're reminded too, we have a national law firm, and we have an attorney by the name of Linda Singer, who used to be the Attorney General for the District of Columbia. And she works for Motley & Rice, a firm down the southeast part of the country. And she is also our lead counsel in this matter. So, in summary fashion, what we're asking you to do is to authorize us to vote in favor of a plan of reorganization proposed by Purdue Pharma, who manufactures OxyContin and related companies in the bankruptcy cases. We sued Purdue Pharma. We were one of the first entities to bring a lawsuit thanks to your vision ahead, and you supported what we wanted to do, and so I thank you for that. Related companies, we also sued, and members of the Sackler family who own Purdue Pharma as part of a civil case against certain opioid manufacturers, distributors, and related persons. Purdue Pharma and related companies filed for bankruptcy in federal bankruptcy court in New York in September 2019. They have proposed a plan that would govern how creditors' claims are handled, among other things. As a creditor, St. Louis County, we have a right to vote on the plan along with thousands of other private and public creditors. The voting deadline is tomorrow. That's why we have the urgency. That's why we asked you to suspend the rules. The plan doesn't specify how much we're going to get. It does, and that all depends on the arrangements to be worked out between each state and local governments within each state. Under the plan, the total estimated amount available to the states, local governments, and tribes is $5 billion to $4.32 billion. This comes from the Sacklers, and the rest comes from operations and eventual sale of the reorganized company. This is only an estimate. The actual amount depends on the performance and sale price of the reorganized company. Assuming $5 billion is the total amount, approximately $57 million will go to Minnesota. From there, if state and local governments agree on how to allocate the funds, they'll be allocated in accordance with the agreement. The state and local governments are in discussions on this, but so far there's no final agreement. If there's no agreement, the funds will be allocated under a default method. Assuming 57 for Minnesota, approximately 60% would go to local governments, or about $34 million. And again, I don't have to tell you how critical this is. One of the other devastating things that came out of the pandemic was that opioid deaths increased. Opioid abuse, drug abuse increased because of the isolation people were suffering from. Our lawsuit recognized this, and this is one of the reasons we brought it. And it's important because any funds that we receive must be used to abate the opioid epidemic. We're doing what we can, and this is our way, one way of doing it. We do it through the county attorney's office in prosecuting dealers, but this is the lawsuit that you brought and that we brought together, and I think it's going to make a difference. And just lastly, most states support this plan, including Minnesota. There was just an article by the Minnesota Attorney General, Keith Ellison. He's in support of this. And the local governments we heard from support it as well. Our outside counsel, who I told you, Linda Singer, she recommends that you go ahead and give us the authorization to vote in favor of the reorganization plan. And of course, that's Nick's view and it's my view also. So with that, I would ask your support for allowing us to go ahead and vote in favor of this reorganization plan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Boyle?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Attorney Rubin, and with your staff of what you've done. I think you were one of the first out of the gates in the state of Minnesota to tackle this issue. I guess my question, Mark, how does this compare? I mean, I feel this is as egregious as what Big Tobacco did, even more so. How much did Big Tobacco have to settle? I mean, you're talking about $5 billion for the entire U.S., which, as we well know, doesn't go very far anymore. What was Big Tobacco? What was that around? Do you remember?
I'm sorry, I don't remember that amount. However, this is only one defendant. There are other defendants that we've also sued, so this is only part of it. But I agree with you. There isn't enough money that can undo what was done. But this is only one defendant with the Sacklers. There are other named defendants that are not part of this plan.
But Purdue is the biggest.
Yes.
They're the biggest one on this.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, in moving forward, it would be more on the prevention side we'd have to use this money for. We couldn't use it for how much staff time was used on this, depending on our courts, and just how much money the county has invested on lost lives and picking up the pieces of families because of this, just through social services. It's astronomical what this has done to the U.S. So I'm happy that we were at one point we were thinking it might be 20 years before we had a settlement on this. So it's definitely that is good news. Do I think it's enough? No, but it's above us. It's at the federal and state level, and I just thank you for your work on what we are going to be able to save off of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. That'll do it for our regular agenda. Moved by Commissioner Nelson to adjourn.
Support.
Support by Boyle. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. We want to take a quick break before we go to HRA. We'll take a couple of minute break and then we'll move into our HRA meeting quick and then we'll go to committee of the whole.
I changed the name as you saw.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back. We're all set. All right, let's proceed. We'll start off with we have a
HRA.
HRA meeting to start off. Commissioner Nelson is the chair, so please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Yugovich. First would be a call to order and ask for a roll call.
Commissioner Jewell, Commissioner Boyle. Here. Commissioner Graham.
Here.
Commissioner McDonald.
Here.
Commissioner Musa.
Here.
Commissioner Yugovich. Here. And Chair Commissioner Nelson.
Next order of business is to approve the minutes of the July 6, 2021 meeting. Moved by Commissioner Yugovich, supported by Commissioner McDonald. I'm going to turn it to Matt. There you are. I was looking for you. You're hiding over there. Director Johnson.
Good morning, Commissioners. The St. Louis
I'm sorry. Thank you. Folks, if you haven't noticed, I can barely stand up with my back, so I'm fighting a few things here. So if I mess up, thank you for the help. First thing we need to do is vote on the minutes of the last meeting. All those in favor signify by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Now, I'm going to turn to Director Johnson to introduce the next item, which is the Burnett Addition development in the city of Buell.
Good morning, Commissioners. The St. Louis County Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board is requested to authorize $75,000 in funding to the city of Buell to assist with the Burnett Addition development of 8 residential lots adjacent to the Burton Park. The city of Buell owns land between Memorial Drive and Monroe Drive that it would like to develop into 8 buildable sites targeted towards single-family or multi-unit townhomes. The proposed development includes the creation of a new road, Memorial Lane, and necessary infrastructure. The project is being developed to support the increasing demand for residential lots within the city. The recent Stauber development has been success with its original 13 lots. 2 new homes have already been built, and the construction of 8 others will begin shortly. The available Burnett Addition lots will be marketed on the city's website as well as local newspapers. The city will advertise the lots for sale between $500 to $7,500. Buyers will agree to build a home minimally 1,200 square feet using stick-built or modular construction within the next 2 years. The total project budget is approximately $287,000, with St. Louis County providing $75,000 and the remaining funds coming from other sources. It is recommended that the HRA Board authorize the Executive Director and County Attorney to negotiate a funding agreement with the City of Buell for $75,000 for the development of the Burnett Addition.
Thank you, Director Johnson. I would now ask for a motion on this item. Commissioner Yugovich, your district. Make the motion for what you see as appropriate.
My district, we had discussed doing 150 on this earlier. I don't know where it went to 75, but I'd make a motion for 150.
Motion on the board for $150,000 of HRA funding. Is there support? Support. Supported by Commissioner McDonald. Discussion, further discussion. Director Johnson, anything you care to add on that?
Yes, I do. The forecasted budget for December 31st, 2021, with the projects that we have in the hopper, recently have $12,000 for Embarrass Township, $150,000 earmarked for the Aurora Market, $150,000 passed a week ago for the Hibbing HRA. With this additional Buell $75,000, that would bring our December 31st, 2021 balance to $32,000. That does include an emergency reserve that we keep for $200,000 for any event of emergency funding.
So, Director Johnson, the 150 is doable.
The 150 is doable depending on how we structure it. If we forecast $75,000 this year and $75,000 next year, we could potentially, with your approval, make it work.
Very good. So is there an issue, Commissioner Yukovich, with splitting that, 75 and 75?
No, not at all. I appreciate that. I think it's one
It's
of
a
the...
worthy project.
It really is, and this will increase tax base, bring new homes, families, but at the same time, this is a great opportunity for this HRA to show again that we are doing things with this money. We are making projects happen, we're doing our part, affordable housing, and these homes will be a very nice addition to the community of Buell, and the tax dollars are obviously something that we're looking at in the future, so looking forward to it.
Director Johnson.
Thank you, Commissioners. So if we could, a potential solution here is to not modify the resolution in the board in front of you and to address this. We desperately need to have a sit-down talk about refocusing our HRA, and I promise to bring back a second resolution when there are available funds for the additional $75,000 with your guidance.
I'm good with it.
Director Johnson, your word is good. Commissioner Yukovich, I need you to withdraw your resolution and remake a resolution as presented.
Yep, I will withdraw my motion if...
With that understanding.
Yes, and move forward with a motion to accept the 75 this year, 75.
Commissioner
And
McDonald.
as a supporter, I endorse
Okay.
that.
So we're back to the original motion. Commissioner Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. And the good news is I think we're getting more asked with the HRA on this, and that's good news for St. Louis County. And you know, there's definitely some communities that we haven't seen that are starting to look to partnership with us on that, which is great. So, I mean, I think you just kind of brushed over it, but we're going to have a sit down and maybe at a future workshop and talk about this might be the 3-year plan going out on how we can invest and invest wisely, because I think could be getting more competitive on this than it has been for asks of projects.
Commissioner Boyle, Chair Nelson, you're exactly right. We have been discussing this since I arrived here approximately a year and a half ago, of the need to sit down and strategize and get some clear guidance on the HRA. We're starting to do some things that are a little bit non-traditional, and everyone's excited about them, but we need to have the financial support in order to keep going with these projects, and I'm confident we can work that out with the board.
Very good. Commissioner Boyle, further?
And so this might be where it might be an ask where down the line, if we do have more projects that we need more funding, we might have to come to the board and say we might need to bump up the allocations on that then, right? Okay.
Commissioner Boyle, that's a conversation that has taken place already for the last 5 or 6 months, that St. Louis County has had a pattern of keeping the HRA funding at a low level, but with more requests from areas that do not have, outside of other HRA areas.
Yeah.
The key is this is anything that doesn't have their own HRA too.
Yep.
But the conversation has been that we may need to bump that so that we have adequate resources going forward.
Good.
So that conversation has already taken place.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Just for...
Attorney Rubin.
Yeah, thank you. Just to make it clear, Chair Yukovich withdrew his motion with the consent of the second. He then remade the motion in its original form, but technically, we need a second. That wasn't stated, so...
Commissioner McDonald did support it. He's
Originally
just
and the
being,
second time.
and the second time, he's just so quiet over here that he didn't hear it, Attorney Rubin.
Thank you.
Rubin's on his
So
game.
we're back at the original motion. Everyone understand what's taken place here? There will be a second motion coming back when the funding is available, and that'll be in next year's HRA budget. So with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Moved by Commissioner Musaf, supported by Commissioner Yukovich to adjourn this meeting. Any Anyone care to discuss that? And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Mr. Chair, back to you for Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. We'll move into the committee of the whole. Could you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Jewell, Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Graham,
Here.
Commissioner McDonald, Commissioner Musa, Commissioner Nelson, here, and Chair Commissioner Yugovich.
Here. Okay.
Move the consent agenda.
Moved by Nelson. Support by Boyle. Anything to be moved? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. On our agenda, it says that we're time specific for, following the committee of the whole. Just so everyone knows, we had that tour last night. It was outstanding. So that when we are done, that will be the end of the meeting in case anyone wanted to tag along. I would encourage everyone to go down and see the Heritage Center, but we had a tour last night, so we are all set. Okay, so we have a mine tour project with Sarah Carlin. Good morning.
Good morning. Can I give some handouts?
Right, yeah.
There you are. Thank you. Meg, do you want one of these? All right. Well, first of all, while you're getting that, I will do a brief introduction on myself. My name is Sarah Carling. I work for a nonprofit called CETA, which is Community Economic Development Associates. We're stationed out of southern Minnesota, but I have a contract in Itasca County where I support 16 rural communities with community and economic development. So this project is actually kind of a caveat to some of the work that I was doing in Itasca County. And also, as a child growing up in both Itasca County and St. Louis County, I kind of tied both ends together. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is just go through this PowerPoint that was just presented to you. If you want to go to the next page about where we got started, as I mentioned, I was doing brainstorm sessions with some of the communities in Itasca County, and it has been echoed across this entire route, as we'll get into, that these communities felt they had a really strong sense of history, they have a strong sense of community pride, but they weren't really sure how to display it. They also stated that they felt that maybe they didn't have the visibility that they needed to draw in tourism. And when asked what their untapped resources were within their community, it was the mine pits. So this idea of connecting these communities and telling the story, the analogy I'd like to use is that each community along this route is a chapter of a book, and what we're doing is we're helping to create the book to tell the story of our Iron Range area. So with that being said, if you go to the next page, you'll see our partners that are along with this project. So that's myself, Megan Christensen, who I have here with me today, Beth Pierce, who was unfortunately not able to attend, who's with the Iron Range Tourism Bureau, Lila Crow with Itasca Historical Society, Charlie Moore with ARDC, and Artie with the Club Masaba. There are multiple other partners that we'll be tapping into as we continue to work on this, but those are identified right now as we've been going after specific grants that need 501c3s, as well as maybe utilizing the Masaba Trail for additional viewpoints of reclaimed or inactive mines. So with that, if you guys turn to the next page, you'll see a Google Map layout. It's just some pinpoints. This is a very high level of just kind of giving you an aerial perspective of the breadth of this project. So it's going all the way from Ironton, Minnesota to Silver Bay. It actually includes, and if you go to the next slide, you'll see the communities that are impacted. There are 30 communities that are impacted by this route, and you'll see the list there. Some of them have already identified the mine pits that they'd like to highlight and tell those stories. So moving on, I'm going to pass the mic over to Megan, and she's going to describe to you the map that's in front of you. It's a stagnant map right now, but there's a lot more to this, and it's a lot more interactive, and she'll describe that, and then I'll take over again.
Thank you, Commissioners. Megan Christensen. I am the Director of Visit Grand Rapids. I have done a couple of these interactive projects. So the map project that you see, it says Birch Stand at Pug Hole Lake is the example that it shows. So this is an Esri map. An Esri map is an interactive map that's a GPS perspective. It has a map on the background, and then the overlay is narrative, images, videos, anything that you want to embed. It can be a community logo, it can be a brand, and then narrative that explains what that location is, and then it'll have a slideshow. So there's 4 to 5 dots underneath that image. It can be a video embed, or it can be pictures. What's nice about this is it pulls up nice on a mobile device, and it also pulls up nice on a laptop or a desktop. So people can look at this before they arrive. They can also look at this on their phone as they're en route. So you can zoom in, zoom out to see where you're at in perspective. You can see all of the dots or all of the locations that you want to identify for this mapping project. So you would be mapping from Cuyuna all the way to Silver Bay. So people can see, oh, I don't have time to get them all this time, but maybe I can get 5 of them near Fortune Bay, or maybe I can get 4 near Silver Bay. So people have a great opportunity to take a look at this map. It is very interactive. And then we will also be creating a Google map. And the reason that we're going to be doing that is at the bottom of the narrative, it says navigate here. When people click on that link, it'll navigate right from your phone. So if you're looking for driving directions, you just click on that link, and now you can go from the Esri map. It'll open up a new screen to the Google Drive map, and they'll drive you right there. You can switch back to the regular Esri map, and you can continue on your route. The other reason we're doing it is for search engine optimization. We feel like all the communities on this route have something to offer to new residents, new businesses, and visitor profiles. And so we want to make sure that that's optimized in the Google search optimization. Any questions?
Thanks, Nick. Yeah. All right, so as Megan was mentioning, with that route, when you're able to zoom in and zoom out, the other thing that you didn't see on that map, because it doesn't currently exist on that route, is we are asking each of the communities to identify up to 15 amenities within their community. This was something that was an initial thought, but as maybe a phase 2 or a phase 3 of the project. But because of COVID and the constraints that it's had on communities, small businesses, and for families looking for ways to get out and explore new areas while also social distancing, looking for activities that maybe are new and free, this was something that we felt was important to add on right away to this route to show value and also show what these communities really have to offer. And that can be anything from boat land accesses to small businesses to ATV trails. I mean, anything and everything you can possibly think of. It could be hospitality. And those 15 amenities per community are being identified as we work with those communities to list those individual ideas. One thing I will mention is that Megan and I have strongly advocated that we will continue to maintain this map. So it's something that if an amenity, let's say a restaurant changes its name, every year we will be sending out an email for each of these communities to identify that these are still accurate, or maybe they want to change an amenity because something newer and bigger and better has become available in their community. And that's that one time where they can change it. There's no cost associated to them. That's something that we'll be taking care of on our end. And then we'll be able to highlight those new amenities for that next following year. And we're going to do that before the high traffic season actually occurs. So with that said, if you want to skip ahead, because I've skipped ahead in our slides, I happen to do that often. There's an interpretive sign sheet. You'll see that there. This will tie into, as folks are working through that tour on the mobile device, when they get to the location for the mining, there will be an interpretive sign that will actually display the history of the community, unique stories about the community, and there will also be a QR code on these interpretive signs that will link back to the route. So I use Hull Rust Mine Pit in Hibbing as an example. It's a high touristic area, same thing with like the Discovery Center. Maybe people are going there specifically just to see it, but then they didn't realize that this tour existed. Well, now this will give them an opportunity to explore new areas that they didn't know were available, to learn more about just our area and how it was so dynamic. So with that being said, if you go to the next page, there is a draft budget. This is our updated draft budget, and I say that because we'll be talking about a previous budget in a later time. But as you can see, the Esri mapping with ARDC, they were kind enough, they had a grant, so they've reduced our cost by half. It was close to about $8,000, and now it's a little under $4,000. Our videography photography, as Megan was mentioning, we are working with a local photographer and videographer to capture all new video and images for the communities. This is another really great asset, as all of the communities that are aboard this project will be receiving all of the images, both stale and video, that they can use to help continue to market their areas in different ways. And this also includes drone footage and Google 360, as well as, like I mentioned, the interpretive signs. There's also a large marketing budget as we hope to extend our marketing throughout multiple years to really help show this as a destination. And then we have the Google mapping, which is also going to be donated by Megan and her team with her time. And then, as you mentioned, or you'll see on the below, there's a phase 2. That's for our DOT. So what we'll be doing here now, I'm starting to look into it, is how do we get this as a designated route, similar to a scenic byway, through the Department of Transportation. So as you're on major highways, you're going to see those, you're on the Minnesota Historical Mine Tour. And so as they then were like, oh, we didn't know what this was, we'll Google it, that's where this Google optimization comes into play, and it really wraps this whole thing in together. They could then find that, go to the next location nearest to them, and then they're really gonna be on that whole journey that we're starting to create. So that is the draft budget. If you go to the slide that shows the current commitments, I'd like to just say that we have been doing this since probably the middle of January is when we started. Megan and I have been up and down the entire range, meeting and speaking with communities. And as you can see here, we have asked all of the communities to be a partner of this project for multiple reasons. I think it's important for them to have value in the project. It's important because we're working with IRRR and they wanted to make sure that the communities are also on board. So we've been asking them for letters of support and a small monetary contribution as well to offset the cost of the project, and using that for matching funds for grants that we're requesting. So you can see the contributions here. We've already reached out to Itasca County, and you can see their contribution below if you're interested in knowing what they were able to contribute. But that's where this presentation kind of comes to an end, and I'd be happy to answer any questions before we go into the next 2 pages that you have.
So first, thank you for really thinking about telling us history in an interactive way and thinking about search optimization. I was like, yes. So thank you, because I think we really need to think about like how we're engaging in a modern way with people. I have 2 questions. So I sit on the board of the St. Louis County Historical Society. I know the county board makes a significant investment in that, and they're trying to connect our different hubs like the depot with our history telling all throughout the county. So I'd like to ask, like, what is the partnership currently looking like right now with the St. Louis County Historical Society? And what, based on your research, what are the opportunities that you're seeing of attracting people here? Is there any kind of, I'm sure you've done some research, and I'm just curious.
So I'm going to let Megan take the second question.
Okay.
I'll take the first question. So what we wanted to do first, so the history portion is what I'm personally working on right now. Like, it started about 2 weeks ago. Aaron Brown is a historian of mining. I reached out to him 2 weeks ago. We had a meeting just kind of trying to see what communities he's really knowledgeable about and what books he's already written about mining in those areas so that we could try and fill those gaps. But it is something that I haven't personally reached out to the St. Louis County Historical Society. It's on my list. As I mentioned, we started this in January. So we wanted to make sure we locked down the communities first. We were able to receive those amenities because what Megan's doing on the back end is she's working with the photographer, videographer, because we want to capture all 4 seasons in each one of these communities so that they can use that for different marketing reasons. So she's working with the photographer now based on the identified amenities per community So now what I'm going to work on is working on identifying those unique stories. So I'll be reaching out to them in the very near future to then start working that relationship. I've been in contact with some very excited historians, like in the Tower, Sudan, Ely area. We have, I'd probably say monthly, if not bi-monthly phone calls, wanting to know like how they can start to put information together. So there's a lot of wheels moving, and that wheel will start spinning very fast in the very near future. Yeah. So Meg, you want to talk about the marketing portion?
Okay, so marketing is my life. That's what I do. I run a tourism bureau. Since COVID, people are wanting to see off the beaten path places. Drive trips are way up, way, way up. And I think that this is a golden opportunity for all of us to be highlighted in that, right? And so that's why we bring in the digital side of things, like the search engine optimization, making sure that we have a strong digital budget to be able to market this. But this is our opportunity to tell the historic and cultural stories. And every community has their unique story. Every time we went into a community, we see in the city halls, we see these images of the people that made what we have here now. And so we really want to celebrate that. And so working with the historical societies and others, we're going to be doing that. And then we're also going to be hiring an ad firm to help us with that search engine optimization, making sure we're first on a search list, making sure that if we do get this certification with the Minnesota DOT, that it is done right. But we also want to make sure that the stories that we hear and we listen to and we get right are everybody's stories, not one perspective of that story. So we look forward to working with the St. Louis Historical Society along with each of these communities and helping them bring people forward to us to share their story.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, the one thing that I would like to say is that Megan and I are kind of like just the funnel of information, right? But everyone else is providing the information so that we can disseminate it correctly. There's a lot of people at the table, as I mentioned, with our partners. We just didn't list them all because, like I said, it's ongoing, and we're really starting to really create a lot of those relationships. And she and I are specific to Itasca County, so we're really broadening our scope. So if you have people you want us to reach out to, I'd be happy to collect that information after the meeting. I'll stay here, and we can certainly do that, so I can create some additional relationships.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love to brainstorm some. And
Yeah.
even like being in the space where we just saw the cultural museum last night too, like thinking about the history that I grew up with, you know, knowing as history, and then what is really beyond that and what is the story of all of our communities would be really important.
Yeah, and I will say with that interpretive sign, it doesn't show the dimensions on this, but it's about a 2-foot by 3-foot sign. So there's a lot of real estate to be able to tell multiple stories.
Awesome.
Any additional questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of things, I guess. First of all, I'd much sooner be celebrating the future of mining than looking at the past of mining, but there seems to be a whole lot of people that don't think we have a future, which I would like to tell them that there is a future here. I would like to support this effort. But before, I mean, there's no ask here, so.
There will be.
And I understand that completely, okay, but before there's an ask here, I would like you to talk to our new land commissioner and our director of the communication director for St. Louis County and figure out an appropriate ask. Bring it back to us at a future meeting. Okay, so if you talk to Brian afterwards, he can certainly get you their contact information. And that's what I would like to see. I'm only one voice here, but then I know I have something appropriate that we're coming back with.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Do you want me to go into the next portion then, Mike?
Absolutely.
Okay. So with that being said, you have a 2-page, it's technically 3 pages front and back, of information that we've already covered. I think it's just more or less a helpful sheet if you wanted to look back versus looking through about 15 different slides. This will have our ask in it. The first section that you'll have where it says communities times 30, The ones that are bolded are the communities that are actually identified in St. Louis County. And with that being said, there are 17. We are saying that there are 15 when we look at our numbers and how we've broken this out. As an example, what I'd like to use is Great Scott versus Kinney. It's a very similar area in the Kinney Lake area. Even though both of them have contributed funds towards this project, we are considering it one community. So just so you know that when we start talking about the dollars and cents, if you will. So if you go to the second page within this 3-page document, you'll see what was the existing or the previous budget. This was the budget that we went to with all of our communities, and this is why I wanted to be clear when we were going through the original presentation that our budget has increased by about $100,000. But we are taking these numbers to figure out our ask to each of the counties that we are working with. So as you can see, there's a budget cost per community. That budget cost per community, so if we took that total cost of $243,150 and you divided it by those 30 communities, you would get $8,105 would be the cost or the ask per community to be a part of this project. What we've then done is, again, there's technically 17 communities in St. Louis County, but again, I'm calling it 15. So we've taken that individual price and we've times it by 15 communities to get that $121,575. With that being said, you can again see the commitments that the communities and the other counties have already contributed to the project. And then where you see the funds received thus far, I think it's important to understand where we're at. The community commitments to date, we've received $54,300. Of that amount, $22,800 is from those 15 communities in Itasca, or in St. Louis County, I'm sorry. As well as Visit Grand Rapids and Iron Range Tourism Bureau have both contributed up to $20,000. So IRRR, we have a verbal agreement that they will be giving us up to $70,000. We've currently received $20,000, and then we'll be, as you can see on here, there's 2 additional grant cycles. We'll be asking for $25,000 each to make up that $70,000. We've gotten some sponsorships from electric companies, and then as mentioned, Itasca County has already contributed $65,000 for their ask. And then there's a private donor for $1,000 as well. And one of the other things I'll be working on is working with other local communities and businesses that support the mining industry as additional sponsors of this project. And there will be a small sponsorship section on each of the interactive signs or interpretive signs to give them visibility for their participation. So as you would look at the our ask portion, our total received to date is $145,300. If you take our new budget, the $334,150, and you subtract our total received to date, that leaves us with a $188,850 gap. If you were to include the $50,000 that we're still expecting from IRRR, that reduces it down to $138,850. So with that being said, our ask of St. Louis County is $100,000. So if you go to the third page, you're going to see this fair and equitable breakout of how we're doing this and how we're asking for each community the exact same measurements. So if you look at Itasca County, for example, which would be the second community, they had 10 communities, so their ask, or their, I guess, total value would have been $81,050. With the community contributions of $22,500, the difference would have been $58,550, but we asked $65,000, so they're over our ask by $6,450. So that's kind of the breakout, and we're using that for each of the counties based on the number of communities that are impacted by this route and the communities that are impacted within their county. So that's like the way that we have found to be the most fair and equitable across the board for each and every county that we're working with, as well as the communities based on the weight that each of them play within the project that we've identified. So with that being said, I guess, is there any questions with this breakdown that we've provided today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, I read it 3 times, and I didn't catch it the first 3 times. But, and that's why I asked the question, what's the specific ask? So you're telling me that the IRRB is going to put in $75,000, and the ask of St. Louis County is $100,000 on mining. And I'm sorry, I just can't support that level of support for something like this. When the IRRR, which should be stepping up to the plate, okay, is not. So I would, before I would be willing to act on this, one, it would have to come back in resolution form, because we're not going to act on something that doesn't have a resolution. That's been a policy of this board forever. But I would like you to have those conversations with, again, our land commissioner, Julie Marinucci, and others. Okay. Ryan would hopefully be able to give you a list of anybody else he thinks, but certainly this has to go back to the IRRB to say, no, this is not an appropriate ask of St. Louis County. Not if it's strictly on mining. And cultural tourism is the #1 growing tourism in the nation.
100%.
Fabulous, okay? And, you know, we benefit, don't get me wrong, but
Well, and your rural communities are the ones that I personally feel benefit the most because they're the ones that are the least seen.
they all benefit, and thank you very much. So
Welcome.
I'll be looking forward to it coming back, but I think you're going to hear from our staff that there might be some adjustments.
And that's fine. I'm open to feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? Okay. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks,
Thank you
Mike.
very much.
Okay. On the regular agenda, we have central management intergovernmental. Commissioner Nelson, would you take that?
Sure. Give me a half a second here to pull out the paperwork. The first item that we have under central management and intergovernmental is the St. Louis County Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leadership Group, Board of a Proposal to Center for Economic Inclusion. And I guess I would get a motion on the floor here.
I'll motion.
Moved by Commissioner Graham, supported by Commissioner Boyle. Brian, what do we have in front of us here today?
So as the board's aware, you've had some recent conversations with some of the internal efforts that have been taking place to analyze our role and relationship in our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. We have with us today a variety of individuals associated with our DEI internal working group, as well as some of the folks from the Center for Economic Inclusion here to talk a little bit more about the proposal that has been submitted and that is in front of the board for its consideration. I'll hand the baton off here to Director Gottschalk, who has been working very closely with everybody involved and can provide a little bit more specificity and detail to the proposal you have.
Director Gottschalk.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Nelson, Commissioners, Jim Gonschall, Director of HR Administration. The request for the board today is to approve a contract with the Center of Economic Inclusion in the amount of $149,200. As you know, the work around diversity, equity, and inclusion in St. Louis County over the years has taken many forms. We shared an update with you at the June 15th workshop, and today is the next step in our journey of DEI. Dating back to 1995, our Public Health and Human Services Department has been an organizational leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion. They formed a diversity action team over 25 years ago. This work was also supplemented in 2009 through an affinity group to support racial, cultural, and other marginalized populations in St. Louis County. The next phase really was organized by county administration in 2020, and we put together a committee representation of department heads, department managers, and also this group merged with another group that was meeting at the time, a Black, Indigenous, people of color peer support group, self-identified as a BIPOC peer support group. And this group was meeting largely as a result of recent tragedies here in Minnesota and throughout the United States. And so as these two groups started to meet, we quickly recognized that the synergies and the potential for this work, really we would benefit from engaging in a consultant that specializes in assisting organizations. And so St. Louis County did that. We identified a need for the sustained diversity, equity, inclusion based on the awareness of continuation of racial and social economic disparities here in St. Louis County as well as throughout the state of Minnesota and the United States. And the goals of the group were to develop and promote strategies that would build organizational capacity around DEI, as well as identifying and implementing changes to our business practices that were informed through a lens of DEI work. We are a service provider, and we have residents that live the experiences of these marginalized populations, and it is the right thing to do to evaluate all of the work that we do in St. Louis County through this DEI lens. So this is both an organizational and inward perspective, as well as how do we elevate the voices of people of color in our communities. So early on in the process, it was identified to work with a consultant, and we partnered with our purchasing department, and we interviewed 6 potential consulting partners. We interviewed the top 2 finalists a second time, and at the conclusion of that process, it was decided to recommend the Center for Economic Inclusion to partner with going forward. Just some brief background on the Center for Economic Inclusion. The reason why they were selected is they do specialize, not only in advancing inclusive organizational leadership and growth, but also, they really, their focus is driving systemic and community and economic change. And this is really where this is a much larger initiative than anything that we've done before, because historically the groups that have met have been very grassroots type groups, and we've looked inward to developing, improving our own culture. But the work that's before us today is really also an outward look, and how do we close the income and the wealth gaps of the people of color in St. Louis County. And so, Mr. Chair, with your permission, we do have quite a few people who took time out of their busy schedules, representatives from our DEI leadership team. We have members of our BIPOC peer support group, and of course we do have representatives from the Center for Economic Inclusion. So with your permission, I would like to turn it over to Director Mary Garnis, our Director of Public Records and Property Valuation. She is a co-chair along with Mike Valdez. They both presented at our workshop on June 15th. And I'd like Director Garnis to introduce some other representatives here today, and also give the center an opportunity to introduce themselves.
Very good. Jim, take over the introductions as they come, and we'll just allow you to go through the individuals that are here. First of all, before you even start, I want to thank everyone for their efforts. This is timely and much needed, and I believe that this board understands that to a degree. So, Mary, please.
Thank you, Jim, for the introduction. Again, my name is Mary Garnis. I'm a Public Records and Property Valuation Director with St. Louis County.
Mary.
I'm also
Mary, I have to ask everybody to speak up there. There's I always sit down in the room where the fan is, and this entire board happens to be sitting where the fan is today. So please speak up so that we can hear you.
And I feel like I'm screaming when I speak up. I'm usually soft-spoken, so I will
fine.
speak up. Thank you. Again, my name is Mary Garnis. I'm the Public Records and Property Evaluation Director for St. Louis County. I was also asked to co-chair the DEI leadership group back in July, almost a year ago, a role that I have taken very seriously, that I have been humbled by, and I've really cherished the work along the way. And I agree with Commissioner Nelson that this is very timely work, especially what's been going on with our world, not only with George Floyd, but also the COVID-19 pandemic, as disparities are really risen to the surface. I wanted to go back just a little bit to, and then I'll give Mike the opportunity to introduce himself. Sorry, Mike, I'm just going to have a couple of words here. So I wanted to go back to that July date when Kevin had asked me to co-chair. You know, and initially I thought, why is Kevin asking me to co-chair this group? And I've kind of debated that for some time. Am I worthy of the role? Am I worthy of doing this work? But as we approached the work, as we started to have conversations with the DEI leadership team, members of administration, as well as members of our BIPOC peer group, you know, it came to light for me that this is just something that I was meant to do, especially as a woman, a person of color, and an Anishinaabe woman. I've been really humbled by this journey, humbled by the conversations, the work that leadership as well as our BIPOC peer group, in terms of our conversations, the vulnerability, especially from people of color that have joined us in this conversation, their willingness to share their stories and their struggles, in terms of, you know, feeling whole and welcomed within the communities in which they live, as well as in their work with the county. And I've learned so much about myself. I've been able to do some healing from, you know, pieces of my past to enable me to move forward with this work. And so I want to turn it over to Mike, but I also want to thank the DEI leadership team as well as the BIPOC peer group that have really spoken out, told their stories, allowed us to understand how best we can move forward. And we've been able to raise their voices as part of the process and then get to this point where we're asking the board to approve this important work. And personally, I didn't know if we were going to be able to get here, but again, it has been a journey. We are here. I've been humbled, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike and let him speak a couple words and introduce himself.
Sure. So Mike Valdez, I believe I met both or most of you a few weeks ago, and I was thinking, am I going to share a lot today? I'm going to spare you that. I think I went in depth with my story quite a bit the last time that we met. But I just wanted to acknowledge your support in letting us be here today, as well as having these folks here with us. I think at the last time that we met, and I'll reiterate again, this work is extremely important. And again, it's great to hear you say that, that you see that as well coming into this. I also want to acknowledge, again, I did this last time, I want to acknowledge again, as Mary just did, folks that are sitting behind me for being here today. For the stories that they have shared, the stories that they will share, or introducing themselves. Because I just want to make the acknowledgement that, I mean, it's no secret that here in northern Minnesota, it's not extremely diverse. And so for folks of color or folks that are doing this work to show up to something like this or to speak up, it's extremely taxing. There's a lot of energy that goes into that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and just give my appreciation to these folks before they even come up. And just for you folks to be sitting here and listening to our story. So Again, I spoke at length last time about my story, why I feel this work is important, why I'm invested. I see this work on the ground every single day. I do Indian child welfare work. I'm trying to reunite families with their children on a daily basis. I'm up here in this neck of the woods on a regular basis working with Boise, Forte, working with all the tribes around. Actually, we work with tribes nationwide, but primarily here in Minnesota. And just the disparities that we see, even with just the Native families and African American families, those two, there's a lot of crossover. It's just being on the ground, being a person of color myself, it's to be in this position where we're at today, that we even have a spot at the table to even be talking about this, is kind of mind-blowing, because when you're doing the work on the ground, you're like, will we ever get there? The disparities are so great. Is it even possible? So to be here today, I thank you for giving us this platform.
And then before we go into, I'm going to introduce the Center for Economic Inclusion, I wanted to give members of the DEI leadership team as well as the BIPOC peer group to introduce themselves. If you'd like to come up, let us know who you are, what you do for the county, and then if you want to share a little bit about how this work is meaningful to you, if you want to come up, that would be great.
Hello. John Stain with the Assessors Department, St. Louis County. Been here for a little over 3.5 years. This work is important to me because this is work that I live. Growing up in Duluth, often being a trailblazer and things that I'm doing, oftentimes being like the first black person to be in that classroom or have that job, or even for this position that I have. So this is important for me. I always like seeing representation. I like seeing inclusion and whatnot. I like educating and letting people know and having a conversation. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Folks, don't be shy. There's no one up here that's shy, I can tell you that.
You're saying that to the wrong person right now.
Okay. I sense that. Okay.
I'm done. I'm Tanya Villegas. I wasn't sure how I was going to speak today. I'm a little emotional, to be honest. I'm an Army brat, so when I moved to Duluth, Minnesota, it was a culture shock for me. I am a white Mexican, if you can believe that. I always say I'm the lightest Mexican you'll ever meet. And that is the truth. Imagine being 16 and going to a high school where they talk about everything about black people and Mexican people and Native people because they assume you're white. And you close your eyes and go home and cry at night because you don't fit in, because people assume who you are. Imagine sitting in an office cubicle and hear the people you work with speak about the people you're helping, about the home you grew up in, because they assume that you're white. Imagine people knocking on your door telling you that your kids are playing with the black kids in the neighborhood because they assume that you're white. This is much needed. Thank you, Commissioner Nelson, for acknowledging that, because it is hard to stand here and be this vulnerable, and I appreciate everyone here, because this is hard. This is hard when people assume who you are because they don't know you. It's hard to stand here and share these stories that sound meaningless to some because they don't know. They don't know who you are or where you came from, because they don't know somebody else's story, because you don't look the same or you don't have brown hair or dark skin. They just assume that you're white. I know where I came from, and I know what's needed, and I know what our clients need. I work in child care assistance to help our people, our communities, get child care to be able to work. I work with 14-year-old kids and minor parents who are also in disparity. So thank you for listening to us and being here today and for this. because we need it. Our community needs it.
Hi, my name is Ida Watson Souther. I am a master's level social worker, been with the county for 12 years. I am the first African American social worker that's been with the county. As a social worker, I started. And I'm not a transplant from Chicago. I've been in Minnesota since I was 2 years old, October 2nd, 1962. Which is the assumption that everybody makes, that if you're a person of color that you came from Chicago, and I did not. I born in Mobile, Alabama. I have a very
I was doing the math, and there's no way you're 60.
61 as of
No way.
June 9th.
No way.
Thank you.
Okay? You're aging much more gracefully than I am, I can tell you, because I'm about your age.
I have a very unique position in the county where I work in the central client name. It has changed its name a couple times, is in the front lobby, but I have to know all the programs that we have in the county for anybody who walks in the front door, and be able to triage on a medical model of what we do, where to go. Someone's aging parent is in Florida, they want to have them transfer up here. I have to know all that as a social worker and how to get them here. Plus, I'm in the homeless unit, so my job is huge. I love the work that I do. It's very taxing, but I also know that I experience being a person of color in this community, in this environment that I work in every day, is very difficult. Where people look down to me, tell me they don't want to work with me because of my skin color or something like that, and it's just really hard. There are days I go home and I cry, and then there's days that I just go home and just very bitter. It's hard, and I love these guys. I don't know them, but I love these guys. I tell them that their work is going to be very challenging, because this is northern Minnesota, and we stretch from the Ely border down to Duluth, and it's going to be very hard work on what's facing them. But we need to dismantle what we have going on. I remember the first day when Ann Bushy was doing her part and trying to change what was going on internally, and nothing we have done has changed. And we need to just dismantle what's there and start all over again, because what we've done is not working. And I know it's going to be kicking and screaming, but it's got to be done. We just have to change some things. And I hope that, you see what they have to offer and what they've done at Ramsey County and what they can do for us and change what systemically has been happening and for 400 years, and that we can move and change some things. And I really hope that you approve this.
Thank you. I still want to see a birth certificate.
Morning, Jennifer Reyes, Administrative Assistant with St. Louis County for 13 years now. I'm very glad and grateful to be here with you today and to represent the DEI group as well as the BIPOC community. I am so incredibly happy and humbled to meet our consultants today, this morning. I think that they are just absolutely brilliant people that will be able to bring so much benefit and knowledge to our communities. I think that there's so much to be gained by diversity and by culture and by accepting of other people. And I am really grateful for this opportunity to be able to have St. Louis County open their minds and their hearts to a different perspective I think that that will give us all, as employees, the opportunity to serve our communities much better. Thank you.
So we're going to introduce the consultants now, and one thing that I'll just say, and then I'll turn it over to Mary, is in choosing these folks, Jim had led on, there were a lot of other very qualified, great candidates for this position. This was well vetted, us going with the Center for Economic Inclusion. There was multiple meetings, multiple discussions, everybody at the board or at the table talking about this, and at the end of the day, I think it was just kind of unanimous, no doubt in our mind that the work that we want to get done in the direction that we want to go, the folks here at Center for Economic Inclusion were absolutely the right choice to go with it. We feel super confident, as you just heard people speak, but it's just coming from Mary and myself, and I'll let you speak for yourself. I think at the first interview when I heard them talk, it took me to a different level of we might, and I shared this last time, this work actually might get done. As I stood up here when I first said, I didn't know if we would ever get to this spot, but with these folks behind us, I think we can do that, and not only I know we can. So I'll turn it over to Mary, and she can introduce everyone.
All right, thank you, Mike. You stole my thunder a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. Before I introduce the Center for Economic Inclusion, I just want to say as part of this process and part of choosing the center to recommend to you, we got a wonderful opportunity to raise the voices of the people of color within our organization. And so as part of this process, we did include the BIPOC peer group in the second interviews, and they were allowed the opportunity to voice their, questions, concerns, their choice. So that was part of the decision-making process, and so a really good step forward. So with that, I will introduce the center and six individuals here to support this work. So just a little bit about the center. The Center for Economic Inclusion is the nation's first organization dedicated exclusively to advancing inclusive growth to achieve regional prosperity. We are a cross-sector organization committed to strengthening leadership, civic infrastructure, and collective capacity to disrupt systems and influence market forces to catalyze shared possibility and an inclusive economy. So today we have with us, traveling from the cities, thank you very much for being here, Devonna Pittman, Director of Inclusive Growth. Devonna Pittman leads the center's efforts to create broad, measurable shared accountability among public, local, regional, and statewide leaders and policymakers by equipping leaders and agencies with the knowledge, tools, and resources needed to close racial wealth gaps and accelerate inclusive economic competitiveness through racially equitable workforce, land use, economic development, housing, transportation, and infrastructure policies and investments. If you want to come up to Devonna. Samuel Endley, Director of Employer Inclusivity. Samuel works directly with private sector employers, regional leaders, and community champions to equip them with the knowledge, tools, resources, and networks to disrupt racially and economically exclusive policies and practices and institutionalize new racially inclusive talent, procurement, investment, and stakeholder policies, practices, and actions. Welcome, Samuel. Michael, I'm going to try to pronounce this correct. Romilarian. Michael leads the center's team dedicated to deploying solutions and interventions for employers that produce results for employees, households, employers, and regions. Michael brings a career of consulting with Accenture and other leading national firms, as well as local nonprofit organizations in Atlanta and the Twin Cities. Welcome. Kay Kimbrell, Employer Inclusivity Principal Consultant. Kay provides consulting services and educational and technical support to clients to close racial employment, income, and wealth gaps in areas of people, procurement, philanthropy, products, and policy. She also helps executive leaders uncover strategic business insights, opportunities to improve processes and policies to advance racial equity and inclusion as a driver of business growth and performance excellence. Welcome, Kay. Tony Tolliver, Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships, with 20 years of experience in leadership diversity and community engagement in the corporate sector. Tony is responsible for strategic vision and innovation of workforce programming. To that end, Tony connects high-level strategic innovation with practical solutions to move the needle on inclusive employment opportunities. Welcome, Tony. And last but not least, Genesis Sutterith, consulting coordinator. Genesis brings years of experience in government administrative support, customer service, and project management. A native of Tennessee, Genesis spent time working for both the Tennessee General Assembly and the State Department of Commerce and Insurance prior to relocating to the Twin Cities region. Welcome, Genesis. And so with those introductions, I'm going to turn it over to the center to provide a short presentation, and then there'll be some opportunity for questions and answers. Thank you, Devonna.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you so much. We are so honored to be here today. Many of us have been to Duluth before, but we've never been to Boise Forte. So we had an amazing time here. Thank you so much to the commissioners for having us here, to the chair, and to Commissioner McDonald for actually having us here in your district. We are really, really excited to be here and humbled to be on this journey with you. I know the team knows that this is not often some of the easiest conversations to have, but we know how to have those conversations. Thank you to the DEI committee and your BIPOC group. The work that they have done prior to us getting here is incredible. I have to say that when I read their vision statement, I had to read it about 3 or 4 times. It was so compelling to me that I told my team, I said, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. And I say that with all sincerity. I spent 18 years working at Hennepin County, starting as the clerk at the county for 3 years, and then I worked in corrections. So I have worked all across Hennepin County in all lines of business. And my last role at the county was disparity reduction. So I was on the implementation of their disparity reduction work and execution. So again, what I've seen from St. Louis County is impressive, and we're just truly, truly honored to be on this journey with you. You have in front of you our presentation, so I'm going to give a high-level overview of who we are, what we do, our methodology, and a scope of the work that was in the RFP. I'm not sure if you've seen the video yet from our CEO and founder, Tawana Black. If you haven't seen it, I know it's forthcoming. Tawana said in the video that we are incredibly grateful to be in this moment with you and to also recognize some of the many distinct assets of St. Louis County. So cannot wait for you to see that video. Our mission is to close racial wealth gaps, and we do that by creating an economy that works for everyone. Page 2 of the presentation. Our work specifically addresses racial wealth gaps by disrupting systems within organizations, and that's public sector and private sector. We replace exclusionary systems with inclusionary processes and policies. I forgot to take these glasses off. Some people need glasses to see. I only need them to drive. So I'm like, why can't I see this? Our team delivers innovative tools, training, and coaching that businesses and agencies need to dismantle those systems. We help to create new, inclusive, and equitable talent, procurement, investment, philanthropy, and public policy solutions. We provide long-term consulting and coaching to help our clients move from good to great. And we drive change that is sustainable and measurable. We are a cross-sector organization specializing in private sector, public sector, and nonprofit. And we're committed to strengthening your organizational capacity by assisting you with tools, resources, and data. We strongly depend on data in this work. We believe in an inclusive growth and an economy that works for everyone. What this means is that the center is uniquely designed and positioned to provide St. Louis County with those tools. And when we do this, it benefits the employees, residents, and those we serve in our community, as well as our stakeholders. Moving to page 3. We create at the center end-to-end solutions for our clients that are informed by industry-leading and organizational analysis and racial equity tools. Then we equip leaders to drive results through inclusive actions, tools, policies, and processes. So we'll work to guide St. Louis County through embedding new inclusive and equitable practices throughout your organization. And we do that with your team. And I'll talk a little bit about the phases that we will go through in the project, which we think will probably be about 12 to 16 months, but we will have really deep conversations with staff and board members and stakeholders to determine what that looks like. We believe in taking organizations from awareness to action to accountability. Page 4. In our methodology, we use FSG's approach to change management, which is focused on policies, practices, resource flows and allocation, relationships and connections, power dynamics, and mental dynamics. And also the 5 pillars of racially responsive employer action, which is people, policy, procurement, philanthropy, and products. And we believe this drives great outcomes and results. Our goal is to ensure that results are intrinsically linked to the personal agency of people who work in your organization and people who are recipients of your services and stakeholders. And we know that this is fully required to embed principles within our institutions and departments, business plans, and strategies and core competencies. Page 5. Page 5 is really focused on a commitment to foster shared accountability. And when we talk about shared accountability, we know that people will often own the decisions that they've been empowered to make. And we are uniquely skilled to bring people into the room, to have conversations with them, and to also make sure that they feel and believe that they've been involved in those conversations. Our tools are effective in setting and creating meaningful conversations and dialogue with stakeholders, community members, and employees. And this is what we believe leads to consensus making, consensus building. Slide 6. We believe that in order to build a race equity culture, several things need to be in place. The first one is to identify race equity champions at every level of your organization, and I believe you have already done that, and I'm very impressed by that. We believe that champions will need to be at a senior leadership level, across management, and all staff levels. Naming race equity as a strategic imperative is also one of the other ways. Also, opening a continuous dialogue about race equity work. Again, getting to a point where we can be comfortable talking about race. Race is something that makes our communities better, and not race is something that makes our communities worse. And also disaggregating data. And at the Center for Economic Inclusion, we have so many data geeks, including our vice president who's standing behind us, Michael Romalaran. Michael is our vice president of Impact and Accountability, and he also absolutely loves data. So I am excited to have him here and to be prepared. For those of you who are familiar with the work that happened at King County, our work is slightly similar from a service provider perspective, we want to understand exactly what residents are feeling, what they're thinking, what their perceptions are, as well as the perceptions of employees, leaders, the DEI committee, and the BIPOC group. So we will ask questions about, or questions that not only lead to solutions, but create opportunities for actively dismantling systemic racism. Page 7 is really going to ground us and take us back to the RFP Purpose and Objective. For those who may have not had an opportunity to read it yet, I'll read it. The RFP Purpose and Objective is to provide subject matter expertise to assist in the establishment of the overall DEI vision, mission, values, and goals, and development of a comprehensive strategy to accomplish these goals. To achieve these objectives that I mentioned, the Center for Economic Inclusion will dive into the work by providing guidance to St. Louis County and Arrowhead Corrections. We will meet with county stakeholders and develop understanding and collaboration for your DEI mission. We will work to assist in the development of data collection efforts to identify structural and practical barriers to racial equity. We will be using quantitative and qualitative data to identify opportunities for growth of inclusive practices, and we will communicate those insights and recommendations to you throughout each phase. We will also provide recommendations and consultation to create action plans that integrate DEI best practices into your everyday work. This includes assisting with the development of measurements to assess the progress of your outcomes, and also the sustainability of the strategy and recommendations. Pages 8 and 9 are going to give just a brief overview of what's going to happen under each phase. So this is our project, the timeline of the project execution. The center proposed a 12 to 16 month phased approach that includes assessment and benchmarking and strategy design to support this work. We will also, in phase 1, assist you in completing an environmental scan of all the work that's been happening at the county, also work that's been happening in silos. We know that when you have different departments and different lines of business, some of the best work happens in silos, and we don't completely understand it. And so we're gonna work to understand all the work that's happening at St. Louis County. We'll be working very closely with you to measure the work that's happening, the work that has happened, and to monitor meaningful and disaggregated data. We'll then prescribe solutions and make recommendations for applying a racial equity lens to all of the work that's happening across the county. We believe that this ensures and reinforces racial inclusion and a racial equity agenda, the racial equity agenda that you have established here in your DEI goals. Also, in phase 1, we will host a series of workshops where we get to meet people around the county. We're going to drive the discovery phase, identify, collect, review, and just really take in every piece of information that you are willing to share with us. In phase 2, which builds on all of the other phases and informs, every phase is informed by the previous phase and the phases after it. Phase 2 is the strategy design, where we will assess the internal practices and policies, convene stakeholders, and the deliverable for phase 2 is to really develop cross-sector strategies to mitigate barriers for resilience, for residents and staff. Phase 3 is the cultural readiness phase, and in this phase, we're going to continue to engage St. Louis County and Arrowhead stakeholders in a cultural readiness exercise, and the deliverable there is a data and root cause analysis to drive meaningful change. Phase 4 is our strategic plan implementation. That is where we plan to launch all the work that we have spent so much time pulling together. In this phase, we're going to finalize tools for capacity building. We will be right here with you, helping you build capacity and complementing the work that has happened and the work that will happen. And so that is the deliverable in that phase. Again, we are here to support St. Louis County and Arrowhead Corrections in developing systemic actions that are inclusive and to establish measurable goals and to also build internal capacity for this work. I know I went through that really, really fast, but I want to be conscious of your time. I know that I mentioned that I started at Hennepin County and in 2020 moved to the center. But I also want to say that at Hennepin, we were able to accomplish a lot of small wins and a lot of very impactful wins. And I believe that we'll be able to do the same thing here at St. Louis County. With that being said, I want to open it up for questions. Thank you so much again for having us here today, and we're available at your disposal for anything that you need from the center. Thank you so much.
All right, questions from commissioners. Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner McDonald, in that order, and Commissioner Yugovich.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the DEI working group that came up with this proposal. I know it was very consuming, time-consuming, and I think there were some really good applicants that I think it was very competitive, to say the least, of who came to the front here. My question to you guys is, St. Louis County is extremely unique in the fact we got 200,000 residents, and as our old commissioner, like great Commissioner Tommy Ricovina said, you know, half of us are at the South 40 acres, including Duluth, Hermantown, Proctor, Rice Lake, with 100,000, and then just this huge landmass of another 100,000 that are very rural. How is your work? Have you done much work? I mean, you got your work cut out for you because it's very different, and you know we deal with this on a board of the partnership of urban versus rural, and to get things done in our county, and we do a good job on it. But how do you see that, and how do you gear towards the urban rural side of things? And we're the same but different in a lot of different ways on that. How can you go in a little more depth on that? Have you done much rural side of things on other projects?
You know, I'll start and say that we know this is not going to be easy work. We're going to lean on you and the DEI committee to help us to learn more about St. Louis County. We have worked extensively across the Minneapolis and St. Paul area doing this type of work. And we know it's not going to be easy, but we're going to work very hard and tirelessly to learn about St. Louis County and do our very best to achieve the goals that have been recommended by the DEI committee.
And I would say that our work is to help you in places and spaces that you recommend that you need change. Now, some of the areas that you mentioned may not need change. They may not have folks who look like me there, who look like any of the other folks in the room. And while our role is to put things in place, practices and policies that help govern St. Louis County as a whole, not one individual household, not one part of St. Louis County. These are things that we're going to put in place with you as your partner across the county. So yes, it will be different, but we believe the methodologies that we use will help you deploy things, deploy policies and practices, and look at data that impacts the entire county.
In addition, I'll add, we'll take a look at your departments. What are the departments and the type of work that you are most concerned with? What are some outcomes that you have maybe set for those particular departments and you haven't seen those outcomes in? So those are the kind of conversations that we will have in phase one, where we establish what you want us to look at. What are some of the data that you've already collected? That'll help us understand how to really do the work.
One more thing I'd like to add. I took, as we listened to the meeting earlier, I took a lot of notes about things that people said. And I heard a lot of inclusive language about tourism and about the pride that you all have in the county and about wanting people to feel like they can live and work here. That's all part of the work that we do. And it doesn't matter if you're part of the city part of Duluth or whether you live in the outskirts of the county. Wanting people to want to come here, to spend their dollars, to spend their nights, that you have to be ready for that. That's inclusiveness, and that's something that we can help you with.
Just to people back on what my colleagues have said, from a practical standpoint, which is part of what your question was about, we're probably going to build from inside out. There's going to be a lot of things that are quick and easy wins for us to tackle and just show progress very quickly, very early, right? And then we start to build out. So there will be challenges, just like Devonna mentioned, right? As we spread out to sort of uninhabited lands or less habited lands, but we're going to put a strategy in place that will allow us to get to that, right? But that will not necessarily be our first stop. So from a strategy, from a practical implementation standpoint, we're going to look for the quick wins, show progress very quickly so that people can know that this is meaningful and is actually working, and then we funnel that out. So that's from a practical standpoint, that's what we're going to do.
One last thing I'll add, Commissioner, and I'm going to mess up your name, Jervik, you talked about...
I've been called much worse.
Me too, so I apologize in advance. But I saw the pride of, when you talked about going to the museum, the Heritage Center last night, and I looked around to watch the eyes of everybody else, and I saw the pride that you have in that. And that's what we're talking about, being open to differences, being willing to give everybody the opportunity to be themselves, no matter who they are, no matter what they look like. That's what this is about.
Commissioner McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and again, appreciate the work from the employees, and then also I think we made the proper choice in just the vibe I get from the people involved tells me we definitely made the right choice. And you look at Tony, we were talking before, he's probably well versed in Ordinance 64 with the ATVs by now too. You look at the district I represent, it's bigger than the state of Rhode Island. In a very large district, a very diverse district, which runs from the edge of Duluth all the way to the Canadian border. And, going through the Heritage Center last night, it makes you realize with the Native American population, the pockets that we have. We've got the Voyager country up in the Crane Lake area. We've got the Net Lake area. We've got the Orr area. We've got the Vermillion area. And I just want to make sure that we understand that these pockets that we have, even though we're all together, there's still some differences in those, and that we can't forget about all of that. And you look at the area that you cover, and you're absolutely right. It's going to be very, very challenging to do. But I think we have people that are very passionate, as you saw earlier in the meeting. We have those people that are passionate and are going to be willing to help you in this process, because it's going to help all the residents of St. Louis County as we look forward. And I commend everybody for what they've done, and I really, really look forward to the next 16 months and as we move towards implementation. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonald. Commissioner
I'll take it.
I can slaughter your name too if I really try hard, okay?
I appreciate everybody coming. Just a couple of things. I had a question, but Commissioner Boyle asked about, St. Louis County is such a really, really challenging geographical area. We're spread out. We're the same, but we're different. You know, it's just so spread out, and cell service and all the good things that go along with it. I keep up, Jennifer is actually sneaking out right now. Actually, Jennifer and I work together, so I keep up with the meetings and things, and we appreciate it. In fact, Jennifer, you could say Jennifer tells me where to go every day.
I believe it. I believe it.
And she actually, we work together, so I have updates, I think it's great, but please use this board and these members. We're invested in this. We're invested. We want to see good things. We want to see success. Help us help you. We're here. We need to learn everything you can teach us that maybe, you know, sometimes we don't think of everything. I know everyone thinks politicians know everything. They don't. So, but we want to be a resource for you, and we want to be able to have open dialogue as much as possible, because I think everyone here is very interested in this moving forward, how it works, and how we can be part of it to make it work better.
Commissioner, that concludes your?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Graham.
First, I'm kind of jealous that Chair Yugovich has been told politicians know everything. I want someone to tell me that.
You've never been told you're a politician, you must know you know it all?
Oh, I guess, yeah.
It'll come.
The trust in that. Second, I also want to extend just a sincere thank you, to the Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Group, to the BIPOC peer group. Something that became very clear early on in talks about your organization is that the trust that has been built from DEI that something will actually happen was transferred into this real excitement about your organization, and this belief that while we may have made some progress in some areas in St. Louis County, that we can make a substantial systems difference here, was so amazing to be part of that experience, and that was because of the St. Louis County employees in this room, and I think administration and staff for really buying into that and making that space a powerful space where we can start this real work. So I just also want to share my excitement to say thank you so much. I really believe that you all will work with us and have this kind of vision of the DEI group be at the core and center, but that you all provide this expertise and amazing work history to make this possible and to teach us how to do that too. So thank you.
Commissioner Graham, normally the comments about politicians knowing everything, they start with superlatives. So don't look forward to them.
I'm only 6 months in, so.
Typically how they start.
Give it time.
It's an honest assessment, okay? I want to once again thank all of you. Thank you for coming up and visiting us up here, okay? This is even though Commissioner McDonald claims over half the county, the truth is that every commissioner on this board adores this portion of our county as well. And it's because it's just a place where people can be themselves and just connect with nature and do other pieces. And so once I see the birth certificate, I'm a yes vote on this. And I want to thank everybody on our team and on your team. I do look forward to this. This is a challenge that quite frankly we've been trying to find a way through for a while. And I'm looking forward to your insights, the insights of both your group and our employee group, and how we manage going into the future. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Commissioners, anything further? Commissioner Musa.
One quick one. Thank you, Chair. You know, it's great to see this plan, and I can't wait to see it come to life and fruition and move forward. I thank you folks for coming up and sharing that with us today. And to the BIPOC group, the stories that have been shared are amazing. I thank you for sharing those. I know those aren't easy to share, especially in a setting like this. Thank you. I know I appreciate hearing all those stories, so I want to send that extended outreach that That means a lot to this commissioner, and I do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us, and we can't wait to see you in Duluth.
Good. With that, commissioners, are we ready to vote? All those in favor signify by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Let the motion reflect a unanimous vote, and I'm going to speak in the absence of Commissioner Jewell as Central Management Intergovernmental. I know he would have been enthusiastically bringing this forward as well. And so 7-0 here is solid gold. Okay, thank you. With it, even if it includes a Yugovich, okay?
I get that a lot.
All right, we do have a couple of other items to take care of. One is a committee vacancy appointment to the Board of Adjustment. I would move the name of Tom Coombe for that Board of Adjustment filling as their support. Supported by Commissioner Yugovich. I know we have a very, very aggressive agenda this summer. And Tom had to leave our board a few years ago for some family reasons, and it's to get somebody like him, it's almost like having, who's a good quarterback?
Anybody but Aaron Rodgers.
Anybody but Aaron Rodgers. Okay. How about Tom Brady?
You mean,
It's like having a Tom Brady
MVP?
back, and get you through the season. So that's the reason I'm moving his name. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. The next is a committee vacancy on our Planning Commission, the sister commission to this, and I would once again, even though I have some really great applicants here, I once again want to include Tom Coombe on that Planning Commission again as he was, and knowing that I have some openings coming soon, because I note that I have one of our committee members in the audience today who's one of my favorite people, but Tom has earned his right, in my opinion, back to there. Is there anyone that would care to support that? Supported by Paul. Any other nominations for that position? Seeing none, all those in favor, by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Mr. Chair, that is all that we have under the Central Management and Intergovernmental Committee.
Thank you. We are at the point in the meeting where it's commissioner discussion items and reports. Does anyone have anything for us today?
Mr. Chair, just one brief thing. Someone who served the public in this county for 10 years, something like that. I know Mark and I served with them, and Nancy served with them. Just want to shout out some best wishes to Don Dickrich.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Boyle. Support. Support by Musal. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting's adjourned. Thanks everyone for coming. We appreciate it.